Welcome back to Visited by Voices Live, the show where you clicked on a thumbnail to see a popular horror author named Armand Rosamilia, and instead you're getting us.
Clickbait!
Not intentionally. Not intentionally. Armand is suffering a blackout at home, which is what happens when you move from New Jersey, aka civilization, down to Florida, the state where prehistoric reptiles still roam the land, quite literally, and the skies are way too bright, way too often. So I hope we can entertain you for the next hour, unless Armand gets his power back and can rise up from the Floridian rubble to rejoin us. Hey, Sam, how are you?
I'm super fucking tired. End of the month I say the word slog way too much. You know how you get into the habit of saying, like, wow, that's really in my wheelhouse. And then you just keep saying dumb shit like wheelhouse all the time. I've been saying slog all the time. So apparently my brain is just latched onto that word.
We need to find a new species of animal and call it a slog.
A sloth slug.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be a very slow animal.
I know, the slowest thing on earth. It'd be like a sloth dragging a trail of slime behind it. Maybe. Like just pulling itself forward with its little hook claw things. Whatever the things are called.
Like some bizarre out of focus YouTube zoological cryptozoological monster. Hey, look, we found the Loch Ness monster, and it's really not a stick just moving through the water. We promise.
It's not a ladle in a pot of soup, I swear.
How do you feel about crypto monsters? I mean, I think most people in the horror community are fascinated, but do you believe?
I used to be really into the Loch Ness monster when I was younger. I didn't really spend a lot of time exploring it. And, then later on, it's sort of like, it turns out my dad is a huge fan of Bigfoot. I mean, for real, he's got like a Bigfoot crossing sign on one of his trees on his property in Louisiana. And so it's funny because like my husband is probably the size of Bigfoot since he's 6'11", and he has a ton of Bigfoot stuff as well. So it's kind of funny. I took a picture of him in front of the Bigfoot sign when we went to visit my parents once, and still love it. But my dad, like the first time I told him about my husband when we first started dating, they were gonna meet him, and it was like, ooh, it's all shiny and new relationship and stuff like that. Apparently my dad had been kind of like sneaking around on his Facebook, right? And so he's like, why is, tell me how tall Chris is, because it says the tallest white dude, or the tallest white guy, and I told my dad, oh, he's 6'11", and I was waiting actually I didn't tell them ahead of time or anything. I wanted him to be surprised when Chris walked into the restaurant. I said, oh, he's 6'11", and my dad, it's so funny, he does this thing that whenever he's taken aback by something, he does this, he makes this face, I swear, he goes, that's the face that he made. So that was great. I think, the fact that that Chris is the size of Bigfoot did definitely helped win my parents over.
Because they were terrified of him.
He wouldn't hurt a fly. I mean, maybe a spider, but not a fly. He is literally a gentle giant.
I carry the spiders outside.
My mom brings them inside. She brought in like this giant spider from outside, and I don't even know what it was. It was so, like, I swear, it looked like a little baby tarantula, but not furry or anything like that. Just think if it was, slightly smaller than a creepy crawler. I know I got a good rhyme going on there, right? Yeah. No, but it was probably a little smaller than that. She brings it into the house. I'm just like, no. My mom used to live in a trailer, and it was like falling apart. And she had so many roaches and fucking spiders in there. There were like black widows. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a brown recluse in there. And there was like duct tape hanging all over the trailer, just kind of like double-sided, right? So it catches any of the bugs that, will go and cling to it, which, ugh. But yeah, so she likes spiders because they kill the bugs. But we really don't have that many bugs because it's a brand new house. You know, we haven't messed it up enough yet. So
Not with the duct tape and the spiders, you don't.
yeah, well, yeah, and that trailer was fucking falling apart. It was like I tried to wash one of the walls once, and the paper towel came back brown. It was disgusting.
Robert Long says, I don't like insects.
Yeah, Robert's got the right idea. I don't like them either.
Well, Robert, I know. I'm fighting with the controls. It depends massively on the insect and the circumstances.
Yeah. What's the worst? Okay, what's your favorite bug and your least favorite bug, if you have one?
I really like moths.
Nice. Yeah, moths are very cool.
Yeah, we get some really crazy moths up here. Least favorite, maybe silverfish.
Yeah, I mean, they live a pointless existence.
Well, they help you know when you have a leak in your house, right?
That's true.
But they don't. But no matter how nicely you ask them, they don't lead you back to the leak, though. So you just know there's one somewhere.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, like as far as moths go, what are those really big ones? Are they predator moths? Those giant ones?
Yeah, we don't have those though.
Oh, okay. Because one of my roommates, like this was probably 8 or 9 years ago. He told me this story. So one of my roommates was a furry. He probably still is a furry. But this like giant ass moth took a liking to him, and so he kind of like adopted it briefly and let it fly around his apartment at the time. And I think it kind of like squicked out his roommates a little bit, which I mean I don't blame him. I'd be a little weirded out by that too. Just this giant ass moth with like the helicopter wings coming at you. Moths are cool though.
Nah, definitely moths are cool. So we are actually coming up on the almost an important anniversary in just a couple days. In 4 days, I believe, we're coming up on the 19th. Yeah, the 19th anniversary of the release of Jason X.
Really?
Is that crazy?
That is weird. I don't, man.
2002. So we're almost there. Almost 20 years.
Oh. Robert's talking about bees. Bees, yes. Yeah. Highly recommend bees. My mom has an affinity for bees as well. She likes to feed them sugar water. And she, they fall into the...
She making fat bees?
I think she's just trying to, keep them alive so we can have more bees out there.
I just hope they're not hypoglycemic bees.
What up, Laundry? I see you in the chat.
There we go.
Giant stone moth. I'm down. Yeah. But anytime the bees would fall into the sugar water, she'd fish them out, and then she'd just let them sit on her finger, and they, dry out their wings, and then eventually they're like, oh, okay, I'm still a bee, I can fly, and then they take off.
There used to be outside this house when I was growing up, and it was my grandparents' house at that time. There was an apple tree, and the yellow jackets loved the rotting apples when they hit the ground because it was part of our chores that we were supposed to get rid of the apples. And of course, you know how that probably went. So, but I used to just grab them out of the air or pick them up off them and just throw them because I had no fear of bee stings. Wow. So I'd go back in and my hands would be all 3 times their normal size and
whatever.
But I knew I was never afraid of bees ever. People get all freaked out by bee stings, and I was always practically begging them to sting me.
I had a really good streak going of not getting stung until probably my mid-30s when I got stung on my baby toe by a little wasp that had taken a liking to me. And then I got stung on the back of my leg by a bee last year, and I was like, fuck, there goes my streak. The bee sting actually hurt way worse though. But it was also, just kind of it was not the back of my knee per se, it was probably but around that area. So that was fun to kind of well, how do I finish the rest of my shift with my leg up on the kitchen table? And of course, it's well, what do I smear on? I would smear some honey on here and just slap a gauze pad on it and hope for the best. It's that's fucking bee's fault. I literally sat down and then a second later I feel a sting on the back of my leg. What a douchebag.
So Robert is reminding us that they produce good honey, which there's not much competition in the animal kingdom of anyone else producing honey, though. So, the bees might have an advantage there.
That would be really weird if other animals could produce honey.
Yeah.
Ah!
As a kid, I was drinking a glass of water, and a bee went in with it.
How did you pass that? I'm not gonna ask.
No.
It must have really stung, though. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
Oh, laundry didn't get stung. All right, cool.
And Robert repeats, like Brian Austin Green said on his album One Step Carnival, B might be the dummy.
Brian Austin Green coming up in the chat again. That's...
I don't... Yeah. Hey, Timmy, how are you, sir? Thanks for throwing up some devil horns.
Hey, Vern.
Yeah, we're working on getting Armand here, but unfortunately, Florida's power grid is not quite doing him many favors today.
Well, red states, we have issues with our power grids.
Wow.
I can say that. Sometimes we just, have a deep freeze.
Well, who doesn't like some Mark Lanigan in their life, Robert? Spat it out before it stung.
Ooh.
I nearly lost myself. That's true. It's a great song. So what have you watched this week?
Shit. I don't know.
Watched, read.
What day is it?
It is Friday.
It's Friday? I've been watching, I've just been stuck on YouTube watching other YouTubers' channels and not consuming any horror content, except for, the only thing that I've been consuming that's horror related has been Armand's Dying Days. And, that one's a little fun one, and I'm getting interested in getting to know Darlene better as our protagonist. So, it's kind of a bummer that, he's having that Florida's having issues right now with its weather, but that just kind of gives me more time to read Dying Days and, get further into the story, kind of see, kind of take it as it goes.
Well, there's 9 of those books, so you got some, depending on how ambitious you're going to get.
I have there, I have a list that's a mile long, but, work. Ooh, I hear thunder outside.
Well, apparently the whole South is going to be without power soon, so.
Great.
So, well, I listen. I hope that Armand can get on here, and I hope we can talk because we, had a tremendous amount of preparation for his show, as usual. But so this week, I've been just revisiting good old stuff. I did do a little bit of reading this week. I just want to point out mostly graphic art at this point. So I read the first issue of Phantom of the Scan, which is Cullen Bunn, the Empty Man creator's new comic. Intriguing start. Like most of his stuff, it's dense, so it's hard to exactly tell you where it's going to go. But I like that. I like the fact that I find things that he writes unpredictable. And I also picked up the second issue of Marvel's Alien. Talk a little bit.
You're really just into self-flagellation with with the Aliens franchise, man.
When I love it, I love it. I just don't love it enough, I guess.
Yeah. What's Phantom Scan about? I'm very curious.
It's very, very tough at this point to say. We're just basically meeting characters, and there's an event that is affecting them all in a negative way. It's not like a madness type of thing. There isn't enough here for me to tell you what it's about yet.
That's always a good sign.
But there's enough here for me to tell you that I'm intrigued and I want to go on. I will say that to give you an idea about just how... I can't show the last page because it's kind of a spoiler for the issue, but at a certain point, you just start to get meeting notes and classified documents to help tell the story.
That's cool.
But at this point, and I'll tell you, one of the pages, one of the things is subliminal messaging, children's television, children's reading material, picture books, and comic books. Project Aftershock.
I'm very interested.
Yeah, and it's a
Kind of a
beautiful look.
Videodrome feel to it.
Yeah, it's a
Ah,
beautiful looking book as well.
who does the art for it?
So this is by Mark Torres.
Okay,
I'm
I
not
don't
familiar.
know.
Yeah, let's see what
Good
Mark
for
has
you,
done.
Mark.
He has worked on. It just says the companies he's worked with American Gothic, Famous Monsters, Clive Barker, Dark House, Heavy Metal, and IDW Publishing.
Sweet. Rock
So
on, Mark.
yeah, and David Sharp is the letterer of the issue, which is those guys who never get any credit because they have to do the bulwark of the storytelling in text form, and get to do the thing that tattoo artists want to do the least, which is letters all the time. Oh,
That's funny because I have letters on my wrist, but they're Greek, so it doesn't matter. I don't know how cameras work.
I got a tattoo this week, but I don't have any letters anywhere on my body.
Can we see the? Okay, yeah. I was gonna be
Yeah,
like, let's see the tattoo.
Let's bring this down. All right. Oh man, I don't know how cameras work either. Apparently, maybe I'm moving
We're all
myself
good
up
here.
to the camera.
It's like Blair Witch Vision over there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. It kind of looks like a Slender Man skeleton.
Well, it's the Empty Man manifestation from the movie.
Oh. Yeah, I'm totally way behind on all my Empty Man lore. I gotta fucking do that this weekend. I want to sit down and relax with because I got the graphic novel of the Empty Man. That I think you said it was the first volume. I think, right?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, this one I picked up off of Walmart, which is funny because I was like, I'm surprised Walmart.com carries this, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to hand over my money. And, I'd like to just spend the weekend just doing that and then checking out the movie, maybe. That sounds like a fucking relaxing ass weekend.
That sounds like a great weekend.
Hell yeah.
That graphic, you got the one with the black cover, which is the movie poster, I take it.
Yes.
Yeah, so the hilarious thing about that is, and although my Walmarts don't have it, I had to order it, but it calls itself the movie tie-in edition or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because it's not at all. It's a completely different story than the movie. So I'm sure there's a whole lot of people that are going to be completely baffled because of marketing.
Yeah, I think somebody dropped the ball on the promotion for that movie.
The problem is there's no easy way to market it today. Like there have been challenging horror films in the past, but you go back to the 70s, you could cobble together a minute and a half trailer that would be kind of robust and interesting and intriguing. Today you have to tell the whole story in 17 seconds and then put a bunch of big text on screen.
Yeah.
It's just a bad time to market a complex genre film of any sort.
Well, we don't have attention spans anymore, and we're all about instant gratification. So,
well, it's even worse than that. You know that like screenplay writers are told to include short expositional scenes in their screenplays, which normally is a bad thing in film, but in any kind of written art. But they're asked to do it because they need to cut a trailer together. And like the film 1916, 1917, I always screw that up. Whichever it is.
Time has no meaning again.
Yeah, I think it's COVID time. It doesn't matter. They literally had to create dialogue that explained the whole plot in very short.
That's probably a problem.
To lead so the trailer would have something, and they don't shoot things just for trailers anymore, which is the answer to all this. But they don't do it.
That's true. I remember some of those old school Nightmare on Elm Street movie trailers where it's like none of that's in, not all of that's in the movie. It would just be, oh God, I think there was a promotional. I remember the promotions for 3 and 5, and those would just kind of like grab you. I don't know if they were theatrical teasers or what, but yeah, you could tell that they were shot for the movie, like shot to promote the movie simply for the trailer. But yeah, we don't really do that anymore, except maybe like we'll have like a big Marvel movie come out, and then people will get all butthurt because this scene was in the trailer, wasn't in the movie, man.
Yeah, because they have to get that stuff out there a year before the film gets out there. So,
I mean, it's like, shut up, you're still gonna go see it.
yeah, as if anyone sitting there was going, I was going to see Endgame because I spent the last 9 years building up to it, but I'm not going to be now because I didn't like the trailer.
Yeah, I wasn't even on the Marvel train until maybe like Avengers, because I didn't see anything before that. And then I don't think I missed that much. I think I'm fine.
They're perfectly competent, like horrifically mainstream franchises, right? They don't make any big mistakes, but they just don't do anything terribly interesting either. But if you grew up with that stuff, you're getting that fantasy of, oh, I got to see it made into a movie.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So I think that's its biggest selling point at this point. But I would like to see like someone take some real swinging at the fences moments for those films because they could. They have a built-in audience that's not going to abandon them. Do something not a little weird, a lot weird. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I was just, I was sitting there watching WandaVision, and I'm like, come on, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and it left me with blue balls so bad. And then it's like, now I gotta wait for fucking Doctor Strange 2. Jesus, you guys are killing me.
Yeah, I don't know. I bet I'm not so close to that stuff that it matters. So I just look at it as. But I will say this: like, there was a lot of shitty kids entertainment when we were kids. There really was, especially more me than you probably. But for everything that people are really like nostalgic for, there was 10 things that sucked royally. And I do think like if that's what the Marvel films are for a generation of kids, they're doing okay. They're doing fine. DC's a different story. I think that's just vomit bags and diarrhea all over.
You don't want to watch the 4-hour Snyder cut?
Not particularly, no. I watched a bit of it. It was well, it looked like a video game, and it was less like sub WB writing. I don't know. Whatever. It's not for me.
For me. Actually, I recently got not recently, this was last year, but I finally had gotten around to finishing The Shining. Like, I read The Shining. Fucking A, I love the book. The movie, I'm just kind of like, I like the book better than the movie because the movie misses a lot, I think. And, I know that we had the mini-series, but I'm just, But then,
the miniseries is a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's King's preference, but Stephen King also gave us things like Maximum Overdrive.
It's true.
Depends on like what version of Stephen King you're working with. But I thought, The Shining was great, and then I decided to go read Doctor Sleep before I saw the movie, and I was really into Doctor Sleep. And I found the movie. It was like $10 on Amazon for the 3-hour director's cut. And so I was like, well, I'll just buy that. And it stands well at 3 hours because I think it needs that extra time to tell a proper story. But my only complaint is that it's like, Rose the Hat doesn't get any room to flex. And she's supposed to be the big bad, but Abra is like this fucking Mary Sue character. And, the most powerful Shining ever.
And ladies and gentlemen, freshly repowered, Mr. Armand Rosamilia.
How's it going? Some down the block, 800 houses in like an hour ago.
Wow.
Woo.
You see, I explained this at the top of the show, but this is what happens when you leave civilization and go down to the southern peninsula of the country.
we're almost in Georgia. We're close enough. We don't have this crap in New Jersey. We just have nor'easters and annoying neighbors.
Yeah, and poverty.
So what did I miss?
Oh, we've been
stalling. Talking about bugs for a while?
We've completely been stalling for you, sir. There we go. Well, thank you for coming on. I really
Thanks for having me.
appreciate it. In the chat, guys, if you have any questions for Armand, please just get them up there in the chat with the preface in all caps of question, and I'll try and get them all to him. So if you're not aware of Armand's work, he's the author of a number of series, including Dirty Deeds, Dying Days, Green River Blend. He has work like Room 138, Abandoned most recently, but he goes all the way back to really, God, you're about 20 years in the publishing game, right?
30 years.
30 years.
Yep. In 1988, I had my first story published. I was a senior in high school. I know I look like I'm only in my 20s, but I'm a lot older.
And I mean, you've primarily worked inside the genre, but your work does have both fantasy and some science fiction trappings as well.
I try to do a lot of different things. It's mostly horror. I mean, that's my first love. But like Room 138 is a time travel book I co-wrote with Jay Wilburn. I've dabbled in some fantasy, especially a few years ago. I've kind of done it all. I mean, I've ghostwritten some romance and some fantasy and other things. So, but mostly it's been horror and the crime thriller stuff lately.
In addition to that, you, of course, are a noted podcaster with the Armcast podcast. So, I mean, you've been on all sides of the media structure at this point.
Yeah, I was a publisher back in the day. I've been doing the podcast now for this will be my 7th year. I'm coming up on 400 episodes, and I run the podcast group that it's part of with 30 other podcasts. And yeah, I've dabbled in everything. I haven't done amazing in all of it, but I've given it a try.
But of course, the literary is where you're best known, I would think, and where your heart really lies. If books were boats, you'd be the captain on a flotilla. There's a whole lot of titles with your byline on it.
I'm very blessed to I got into the writing years ago when I went through the 90s with the zines and all that, and then I was very lucky because I got in on the ebook Amazon right when it started. And I mean, I can literally remember putting out a zombie book, and there was like 30 zombie books, and now there's like 30 an hour.
Yeah, between Keen and Permuted, there was an explosion that has not abated.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a great ride. I've learned and relearned this business about 1,000 times. And I always say, if you can do something wrong, I've done it wrong, and I've learned from my mistakes. Hopefully, you do it the hard way. But I've been full time this is my 9th year of being able to do this for a living now. So I'm living the dream.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just want to be able to get to that point where they can support themselves with their art. That's a huge deal. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it is for me. And I kind of got pushed into it. I lost a job, and while I was looking for a new job, I started writing a lot more. And I just, like I said, I got lucky because the ebooks had just taken off at that point. And I'm a prolific writer, and I had a ton of books that were trunked that I started sending out to publishers because it became easier. Back in the day, self-addressed stamped envelope, and you'd put it in the mail, and you'd wait months and months for it to come back. And now with emails and everything else, I was just getting stuff out. And so it's I'm an old man. I'm 51. I feel like I'm 100 sometimes. Especially when my kids know all this technology and stuff, and I'm like just completely stupid about it. But I try to learn. I try to kind of adapt, and I think that's what it is, because what's big today is a year from now we might not have even heard about it.
Do you ever have an issue? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're probably better formed right now.
Well, I just wanted to ask because it's like I have, it's refreshing being the youngest person in the room right now, because usually it's.
Hey,
What? It's just refreshing being the youngest person in the room for a change, because I feel like I'm 100, but I can't keep up with the slang, right? I mean, I'm 36 and I'm already behind on it. It's like somebody said yeet like a few years ago. I was like, what the fuck are we doing? So, I mean, is that an issue for you, or is that something you might incorporate into like future books?
So, like, it's funny because, like, with anything like technology, my oldest is 25, my youngest is 20. She'll be 21 actually in October. So I rely on her, but I also love doing the dad thing and, you know, telling her, you know what, I'm so woke or whatever, and then she just shakes her head and she says, please never, you're not even using that right. Please don't ever say that again, you know. And then you just use like every stupid, like I still will, when she says something stupid, I'll still be like, talk to the hand, and she was like, oh my God, please. Why are you even doing that? You know, so
I love it so much. You need to like really embarrass her and say something like on fleek, because I'm pretty sure that might be old at this point.
Yeah,
like, who taught you that?
I don't know. Like we have nephews that are like in teenagers, and they come up with all these things. They see a car and they don't just go, oh, that's a nice car. They come up with all these really weird things, and I'm like, that's not real. Like, you guys literally are making this up. There's no reason to use stupid words for words that exist. It makes absolutely no sense. But then I look back and I'm like, we probably did that in high school too.
To a degree, Armand, but we're pretty close in age, and I would say like we were still using a lot of slang that was popularized in the 50s when we were in school in the 80s. Like, we were still saying things were cool. you know, I mean, it wasn't quite as, I don't know, the cycle of slang was not quite as crazy as it is now, whereas it's month by month, it changes. Whereas we had good chunks of time where we were still using the same verbiage.
That's true. But I you know what? Not every sentence, like my son will start talking, and I can't understand a word he's saying. And I'm like, I know my parents kind of understood what I was saying. I mean, I wasn't just using words for other words, and I think that's kind of what is. Here's the thing. Obviously I grew up in Jersey. I listened to a lot of heavy metal, but I also listened to a lot of original rap music when it came out, and I could understand what they were talking about. And now my son plays me something, and I'm like, except for the profanity, I literally have no idea what this guy is talking about.
Well, you know, I've always said that Ice-T's OG album is basically a Johnny Cash record.
Yeah. And I love that album.
Absolutely. It's a formative album for me, too. Even though I grew up more on the punk side of things, though I did listen to a lot of metal, because if you're of our age, that's what was happening, man.
Yeah.
That's what
it was all kind of blended in together, which was great. I think there was no lines. I mean, you listened to a band because it was good. You could listen to the Ramones. You could listen to Agnostic Front. You could listen to Anthrax. You could also listen to Ice-T. You could listen to a ton of different bands, and it was all, for me, as long as there was guitar, as long as it was loud, as long as it was shouting at you, I was a big fan of it.
Yeah, everything had to be writ large.
She's laughing. She's laughing because she's a lot younger than us. She doesn't understand our generation.
To be fair, no one understands our generation.
To be fair, I'm an old soul. Get told that all the time.
Let's back up, because my famous first question got lost in the mix of blackouts and stalling for time. How did you originally get bit by the horror bug? Just as a kid, as a fan?
Dean Koontz. I was 12. My brother was 11, and we were awful kids. We used to beat the crap out of each other all the time. And my mother, between, I think it was 5th grade and 6th grade or something like that, literally we were punished the entire summer for beating each other up and breaking things. And he got punished in our room, so he had all the toys and everything, and I got punished in my parents' room. And the only thing there was to watch all the kids outside playing, or my mother had this huge wall of paperback horror books. And so I just started reading. I was bored, and I always kind of like reading, but I started reading, and anything with a giant spider on it, or whatever. But the Dean Koontz stuff I really loved. And once my mom saw that, she started, basically feeding me more Dean Koontz books, and which is funny today because she's still a huge reader, but she's a diehard Stephen King fan, and it was kind of like the rebel. I became a Dean Koontz fan, and I can still remember 12 years old, reading Phantoms and being freaked out by that book and thinking, this is what I want to do with my life, kind of thing. And so I think that was always it. I was always the kid in school with the paperback book in my pocket, and I had the cool mullet, although my wife says that's not a real thing. And I was like the Dungeons and Dragons nerd and all that. So I read all the time. I mean, I would read during lunch. I would read, walking home. I would have a book open, and so I was constantly reading. And my mother really, push me. She would buy new books and she would give me the new books, and we kind of had like, here's your pile, which was kind of neat. So I mean, to this day, me and my mother will still talk books. We still swap books, and so that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with my mom. Like, we would go out to eat places and we'd both get something to read. And I read a lot of Dean Koontz growing up too, a lot of Stephen King. And speaking of both of those, I just talked over laundry, but I do that all the time.
Yeah, Laundry Art is saying my dad offered me Dean Koontz because he didn't want me reading Stephen King. My parents were actually cool with me reading, period. So it was, now if I wanted to watch an R-rated movie at 12, I had to make a damn good case for it. But I could read a novel that was far more obscene because they were just, I think, mind blown that, a 12-year-old wanted to read a novel.
My mom would cross out all the dirty parts in the books.
Really?
Yeah, she would read them first, and she would cross them out, and then she would give them to me. So I told this story. I was at Nikon one year. I was on a panel. I told this story, and Grady Hendrix was sitting in the front row, and I said, I distinctly remember a book that the couple, they went into a movie theater. And he reached over, and then like the next 3 pages are blacked out, and then a giant spider or something attacks them. And I never knew what it was. And he thought that was the funniest thing. So I actually bought a copy of Paperbacks from Hell from him, and he signed it to like my mom, like to Katie, like the greatest horror mom ever, or something like that. And I gave it to her, and it was great because going through the book, she was like, I read that. And it was neat because it's like, she's like, oh, I know this one. I'm like, well, that's F. Paul Wilson. Like, I know him, like I know a lot of these people now. I've been to panels and conventions, and some of them I've hung out with. So it was really that neat thing of some of those authors she read for years and years. And now I kind of, I'm not a peer of F. Paul Wilson, but I'm kind of in that same genre. So I can sit at the table with him,
That's really funny, though. It's sort of like growing up. It's, so did she do that to all of the books that you read?
She did it to a lot of the ones that she read first.
Okay.
So she would read like 5 or 6 books a week, paperbacks, and I do the same thing. Like in every room, there's like a book, and I'll just pick up a book and read a couple of chapters. And so as she's going along, she started crossing them out on those books. Now, there was a lot of books that were on the shelf that I picked up before she could do that. And, a 12 and a 13-year-old boy going through those, I might have read those parts 3 or 4 times, and I might have understood some of them too. So
it's like reading government files. It's just, he stuck his redacted into her redacted.
Right.
Oh, I'm just imagining you being handed a copy of one of the early Richard Lehman books and opening it. I thought there was text in books, Mom.
Yeah.
Not just black magic marker.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about zombie fiction because a decent part of your career was built upon the zombie boom.
Yeah.
And certainly there was things that came before, but you hit the time pretty sweet and pretty perfect. So talk about Dying Days for a little bit. Like, what made you think that the zombie genre, which at that point was more of a film subgenre than a literary subgenre, what made you think it could work, and what did it feel like to be part of that first wave?
So originally what happened was a publisher who did extreme books. They came out with a call for extreme zombie fiction, and I really wasn't much of a extreme horror writer. I'm still not. But I said, yeah, let me give this a shot, because I always wanted to write a zombie book. And so, but I was worried that it had all been done already. You know, I've seen all the movies and everything. And then I happened to be in I was like in a Books A Million, or I was in the Barnes and Noble, and I saw The Rising from Brian Keene. And I knew the name. I'd known him from the 90s, from the zines, and I'd loved his story. So I read that and I realized you could do something different with zombies. And so I ended up writing a novella called Highway to Hell, and the original is very graphic, a lot of sex, a lot of over-the-top violence on it. And I sent it to the publisher, and they rejected it, but they said, you have something here. We just are only going to pick 4 novellas or whatever it was, but this is pretty good. So that's when it kind of hit, and I released that, and it did really, really well, because, again, there wasn't a ton of zombie stuff out. And I had written a short story at the end called Rear Guard, and it starred a woman, Darlene Bobich. And I actually got the name because I went on Facebook, or it might have even been MySpace, who knows. I said, hey, I need a name for a female. And a woman named Darlene Bobich said, use my name. So I did. And which is kind of neat. And so that became Dying Days. That became the series, which ended up being 9 books and about 7 or 8 books that kind of were spin-offs from that world. And so that ended a few years ago. But then I still had some short stories that were out. And also Brent Abel, an author, he had written a short story for me. Actually, I think he's done his 2nd or 3rd book set in my Dying Days world, so it's actually kind of continuing, which is pretty neat.
Kind of spreading like a virus. All right, I had to make the joke.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I'm very subtle about it too. I've actually just started reading the first Dying Days, and I'm getting to know Darlene more as a character. I'm only about 15% of the way through because work life stuff, and it's nice. She's kind of down to earth and kind of relatable, and it's easy to get to know her and kind of, and feel like you're with her going through that journey. And it is pretty extreme. I'm not going to lie. I was like, whoa, this is a bit much for me. And I have very weird tastes, but it's like that. I guess that's where all the redactions went.
Yeah. I wanted to make Darlene. I didn't want to do you see all these movies where this kick-ass female wearing all leather and she beats up 75 zombies and that. So I made her a normal 20-something girl, little chubby, average looks. She's not she's not a stone cold killer. She cries. She's just a normal person. She worked at a makeup counter in Maine before the zombie apocalypse happened. So how would she react? And there's a definite journey. I mean, she definitely gets harder and more sure of herself, obviously, as the series moves along. And I wanted that. I wanted to see that character arc, through it. So I think for me that was kind of important. And I created a ton of really, really good characters that did some spinoff stuff along the way. So.
Yeah, I like how she's not starting off as... Okay, I'm going to talk about Anita Blake. Do I need to explain this to people in the chat?
I think they're probably okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I like that she doesn't really start off as Anita Blake where she's already established. I like seeing that growth.
Yeah.
But, I don't know why I've been thinking about reading the Anita Blake novels again. I'm not sure what dredged that up, but
did you have a decade? Did you have a decade free to spend, or?
I think I pieced out when it was just they became just only redacted, and everybody was aware something.
Yeah.
So, but no, I appreciate seeing that growth in any character. Darlene is very charming too. Something kind of girl next door about her.
And that was
Well,
the idea behind it.
Well, I also think that there's something specific about the small press environment that allows for you to create a character that is actually going to grow over the course of, a series, as opposed to, okay, we need a fully formed product for this first book in the launch. There is a freedom of the small press that doesn't get discussed much. It's usually just thought of as kind of a minor league situation, which I think is unfair, especially in today's world. Whereas really, when majority of books are being purchased online, it's a pretty level playing field in many business ways now.
Well, there's no, I mean, so for me, like, and I'm a hybrid. I do some, I work with small presses. I've worked a couple of short stories with the big five. And I've done obviously a lot of self-publishing. And for me, it comes down to the money and the creative freedom to do that. So, Dying Days was not a big seller when it came out. It was a decent seller, but I kept at it. And I think if I had signed that one and done deal with a big publisher on that, that series would have never happened again. I mean, I've written books for publishers that I would have loved to have done a sequel or two, but the numbers weren't there. And I mean, that's that bottom line. Whereas I think the series got better as it moved along. Dying Days from book 1 to book 9, that's 7 or 8 years. And for me, I'm a much better writer, I'd like to think, and I've come up with some really good ideas. And probably by about book 7, I realized, okay, I don't want to do this for 50 books. I don't want to just keep dredging up the same stuff over and over, because I wanted to do other stuff. I didn't want to be a zombie author. I wanted to be an author. So that's why I started, really moving into a lot of other things. But as a self-published author, I had that freedom to go, I want this to be 9 books, because if it was selling as well as it was for a big publisher and they were making money off of it, they might have said, okay, here, let's sign another 6 or 7 books on this one, because we're making money on it. And I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that was super smart. I mean, just being to have the freedom to do your art the way you want it really outweighs a lot of big book deals, I would say.
Well, I mean, there's benefits to all sides of the business. Back when I was with Coscom, there was some real positives to it. But when the internet changed and message boards were no longer a big deal,
yeah,
that company didn't evolve, and it became a problem for that third books. So I think that being able to, as you have, to take control of your destiny and to really push it along as you've seen fit. And I'm sure there's been bumps in the road, because none of us are perfect. But,
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a sense of control to your career, which you don't necessarily get if you just immediately jump to the big guys and maybe have one book and then you're forgotten, which happened to a lot of people in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem, because a lot of authors that I read that I really loved, they had that one and done career.
Yeah.
Because they had that big advance, and then they didn't come anywhere close to that, and then they were done, and then other companies weren't going to pick them up because they knew the numbers and they knew not to take a chance. A lot of really great authors who had been pretty big authors and authors that helped me along the way. Jay Conrath and Scott Nicholson are two that come to mind that were really, really helpful to me when I first started out. They had both been with major publishers, and they had gotten the big advances and all that. And they, segued into the small press and self-publishing and everything. And they both do very well with it because they were able to adapt. But there's a lot of authors that I know, a lot of authors that I go to conventions and book signings with, that are still selling that paperback copy from the 80s or the 90s, and kind of whining and bitching about all these damn kids are doing it the wrong way. But unfortunately they don't realize they're doing it the wrong way now.
Yeah, definitely things evolving. You've got to keep up with them for sure.
Speaking of evolving, you can't just write anymore if you want to stand out from the pack. You have to do something else. And certainly you were an early convert to that, and that leads you to your podcast career, which obviously is both feeding back to your writing career, but it's also allowing you to have a reach into a segment that there was nothing like before the internet generation.
I'd actually gotten my start in radio a few years before, just a local radio down here in Florida. A buddy of mine had started or built a radio station right on in Flagler Beach, right on the pier, and he said, "Hey, I would love to have you and another author come on Friday nights, and we'll do. You guys can interview people and do a writing show, the two of you." And so I did that for a couple of years until it just got to the point where it was a Friday night. So I would do like 7 to 8. We'd do the writing show, and then 8 to 9 he was doing his show, and then or 8 to 10, and then 10 to midnight I'm doing a heavy metal show, and then I'm driving home at midnight on a Friday night, and it wiped me out. And then I was listening to podcasts, and I said, let me give this a shot. And that's literally how, for me, it was, okay, I just want to interview some people. I want to interview my friends and see what happens. And it took off from the beginning. I had been on enough podcasts to know that I did not want to do a show where I had a list of interview questions in front of me. I had been on a podcast where the woman literally just read the next question, and I answered, and then she just read the next question. I'm like, this is awful. So I've literally done almost 400 episodes now without never having a question in front of me, never knowing a lot about the guest, just kind of wing it. Let's talk. And I did it selfishly because for me, I wanted to do it so I could learn their tricks. I could learn people. I would bring a publisher on because I wanted to know what they were looking for. Because then after the interview, I would say, okay, this is my pitch. And I sold a ton of books, and I still sell a ton of books by doing that, by showing them who I am and that I can promote. And then I have 132,000 Twitter followers, and I've done all these other promotions, and I do all this stuff, and I talk about my books on my podcast. And I think that has definitely really helped to put me to that next level, and really helped me to continue to sell books and to continue to be able to do this, as a full-time career.
That's sneaky, and I love it. I'm gonna be taking that tip, putting it in the back of my head for later.
It definitely helps.
So, do you get a different sort of? Do you feel like a different creative? Do you feel like? Sorry, I'm trying to think of the word right here. Not. How do you look at your creativity with regards to podcasting versus writing? Do you get the same feeling for both in a way, or are they different feelings for you? Because I mainly just talk and be an asshole on podcasts. So for me, it's sort of like afterwards, I'm like, whew, that was a great way to relieve all a bunch of stress and anxiety in a fun way. So, is that how do you approach those? I'm sorry, I can't find words. I'm exhausted. It's Friday.
I think for me, podcasting is more like having a conversation like we're doing here. We're talking shop. And I love that. And my wife is not a creative person. She's super, super supportive. She handles all the financial stuff that has to do with this, which is great because I'm an idiot when it comes to all of that. But she doesn't understand the character creation. She doesn't understand a lot of that stuff. So for me, once a week or however long, I get to talk to another author for half an hour or 45 minutes and say, what's your approach to it? Who are you working with? And again, it's selfish because I'm always trying to find a different way to write. A great example is I do a thing, it's called the Mondo method. And it kind of started as a joke. My nickname is Mondo. And Jonathan Maybury, I talked to him one time, and he said he starts writing at the top of the hour and he writes for 45 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes he plays around. So I tried it. I was looking for a new way to write more words. And I realized after the first 15 minutes, I kind of petered out. So I started doing what I call the Mondo method. So at the top of every hour for 15 minutes, I write. And it's like 600 to 700 words in that space. But if I do that 3 or 4 or 5 times during the day, and really I'm writing like an hour, I'm still getting like over 2,000, 3,000 words a day in. So that was kind of like the light bulb moment for me of, this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to learn, to selfishly to cheat and figure out the best ways for me. What is everybody else doing? And then what do I need to do? And I'm doing 400 to 500,000 words a year just doing it in those small pieces.
That's amazing. Seriously.
Well, you are well known for working on many projects at the same time as well.
I have, I think, 14 open projects on the board
I
right
can
now.
that super multitasker.
So certainly there's some time and prep before you sit down to write on a specific project, just to reacquaint yourself with where you left off. Then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a total pantser. So if something has a deadline, like I'm working on a book now for Severed Press, and so my goal is like 1,000 words a day to finish that book. So that's always the priority. So that's my first writing sprint at 10 a.m. is that book. So I'll usually get about 600 words in, and then it might be my second sprint, or it might be my third sprint, or it might be my fourth sprint that day. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in, because then I also write chapters for my Patreon, where there's like 2 or 3 books that every month I put another chapter and other contracts. And then, Dirty Deeds 10 I'm working on another series. So I kind of look at the board and I go, okay, what haven't I worked at? And I have a sheet every day in a notebook, which I think I've filled about 3 of them in the last 5 years of every time I write something, for the day, I write it in there. And I also have an Excel spreadsheet that also keeps track that my wife created for me, so I know where I am to the 400,000 words for the year. So it's there's days when I just want to write something different, but it's unless I'm caught up, because it's a business. This is how I make my this is how I make my money. This is, for me, everybody says, what's the motivation? I said it's fear. It's fear of being a retail manager again. It's fear of putting clothes on, putting pants on every day and having to leave the house. I mean, that's a big motivator for me.
I love the fact that you say I'm a complete pantser, but you're so organized on the business side of it. And I'm a planner completely, but yeah, I'm horrifically unorganized about the business side.
It's my wife. When we first started dating 8 years ago, she said, how many words do you write? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, how much money do you make? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I really didn't know anything. I make enough to do this for a living. I got a couple of really, really nice contracts, and I paid off all my bills and all my debt, and I live off of that, but I have no idea. So she started, because she's a commercial property manager. So she deals with numbers all day. So for me now, I get a contract and I immediately just forward it to her. And I go, here, look at this. Let me know if this is, does this make sense? Is this? And she'll go, well, change this and this. And I keep track. So I keep track of all the money. And it's funny because I'll get a new book or something, and I'll go, all right, I need to do advertising, and we'll kind of set budgets every month for Amazon ads and for other ads, book bubs and different things. And she's really good with basically saying, her money pays the bill. She has a career, so my money's kind of the travel money, the play money. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but I have some Funko Pops. We have about 500 of them in the house right now. We are like ridiculous buying those. And I'm a collector. She's a collector. So we have like themed rooms in our house now that the kids are gone. And so it's a lot of fun. And I put more pressure on myself than she ever will, because I'm constantly like, maybe we shouldn't spend this $25 on an ad kind of thing. And she's like, spend it. And if worst cases, you lose $25.
Griffin in the chat has a question for you. Not related to anything we've talked about, but that's how things go.
That's how it
goes. Has Armand played any horror video games?
So I stopped playing video games, PlayStation 2, and that was when my son started kicking my ass in everything that we played together. But I'm very old school. My wife, for Christmas, or maybe for my birthday, she bought me a PS2 because I didn't have one that was working in the house. I'm very big on you probably know Suikoden, Vandal Hearts, like all the role-playing games. So I'm very, very big on those. And so I play those. And then my favorite game of all time is still Doom. But I don't play any of the new Dooms. I play the PlayStation 2 Final Doom. And my son has tried to, he's like, oh, you gotta play this on PlayStation 4. And I'm like, this is awful. I just want to go back and forth and shoot things. I don't want to look up at the ground and the sky. And I can't handle these controllers. This is ridiculous.
My last video game system was the Odyssey 2, which we gave up the ghost in '84.
Wow.
Ooh, what? I have not even heard of that. What are
So Magnavox had a video game system.
Yeah.
Called the Odyssey, and it was pretty revolutionary at the time for about 3 seconds before the Atari came out, and no one cared. If you're old enough, that was the slightest little twitch in the back of your head as you remembered kind of something.
Yeah, apparently. It's like, man, I missed that completely.
I'm not a gamer at all. I have enough fixations that I don't want to add another one, so I don't want to even go down that road.
That's my problem, because I will take a couple of days off, and like Suikoden, you have to add 108 characters. You have to go find them out in this world and add them to your castle, basically, and then you mix and match, and you have to build up all their points and everything else. And I'll sit there for 10 or 12 hours and play this, and then I get nothing else done. So I have to be very careful when I take a break and start doing that, because for me, it's never that, oh, let me play a game for a half an hour. It's like, let me play a game, and then my wife wakes up and she's like, you haven't slept all night, you know? And I'm like, my bad.
I've done that. Yeah. My husband is more of a gamer than I am. I think he recently finally finished Doom Eternal, but I can't get into any of the games that are not, that make me deal with perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to deal with anything that looks that 3D. It's too much.
Yeah, like Call of Duty and all those, when my son was playing that, and I would, he would teach me how to play, and I would be standing against the wall, shooting at the wall and looking at my feet. And I was like, here's the controller. I can't. This is too much.
So Big Crack Rock out in the chat is trying to win the comment of the day, I think. He says, cool, it's Scott Ian.
Yes, actually, yeah, I'm going to say Big Crack Rock won.
So
I like that.
There was already an Anthrax reference, so it works.
When I wasn't as heavy, one time my son, I would take him to Orlando to a skate park, and I happened to be wearing a Slayer shirt, and this is before my goatee was all gray, and I had my laptop. I was actually writing, and people kept looking, and then my son came up and went, hey, they think you're Curry King from Slayer. And I said, hey, tell them I'm Curry King from Slayer, and you're my son. So he actually, after a while, he's like, hey, that's my dad. Yeah, he's in the band Slayer, and a couple of them wanted my autograph, which I thought was awesome. But now I'm too gray for that.
It's not like he's not.
True. I do like the Scott Ian. Right? I'm a big fan of Anthrax growing up in Jersey, though. I saw them many, many times. I always tell everybody I saw them. The first time I saw them was 1984 at the Fountain Casino in Aberdeen, New Jersey. Anthrax opened up for Metallica, who opened up for Twisted Sister. It was the first time Metallica had played on the East Coast. That was like one of their first shows with Kirk Hammett.
My mind-blowing early show experience was in '88 seeing Soundgarden open for Mudhoney.
Oh, wow.
So in a couple of years, that would be a preposterous thing. At the time,
yeah,
Soundgarden just had released Flower and SST, and they were a kind of new band, and Mudhoney actually were a little bit better established.
Yeah.
I fell asleep during the Masters of Metal once. That was fun. I'm sorry. I'm a cringy asshole, I know. But I did get to see Ronnie James Dio. I got to see Motorhead play live. Judas Priest. That was really, those are all that, I'm not a huge metalhead. I like metal, but, I can't rail it off the top of my head. But, that's an experience that I won't regret forever.
Come on, Sam. What's your favorite Armored Saint song?
Who, what?
You're supposed to say, can you deliver is the answer.
Yes.
I feel like I'm setting myself up for something if I say
No. We're playing very unfair here, because in Jersey there were certain bands that hit the tour circuit religiously, and so we had and we also had record stores like the real deal of rock record stores, which
I remember going up to the Route 18, the flea market, to Rock and Roll Heaven, and seeing John and Marcia Zazula, who ended up putting Megaforce together to sign Metallica. And I remember going up there and buying bootlegs from them like every other weekend.
Well, Eddie Trunk and I worked for the same record store chain, so I mean, it's
Oh wow,
it's all the same world.
Yeah, WDHA I used to listen to, and
Oh yeah,
I used to listen to. And Eddie Trunk was Friday nights with my boombox under the covers and my headphones on, and listening to him, and that was awesome.
and if you turn from there to PRB, Princeton University's radio station, you could listen to noise rock from midnight to 3 a.m.
Oh
And
wow.
that's where I discovered things like Dinosaur Jr. back before they were Junior.
Nice.
Yeah. See, that's very Jersey. No one cares but us.
No,
Like
no,
everyone watching right now are just glazing the fuck over.
I can name about 50 Jersey bands that just played in Jersey that I would see every weekend. You know, Obsessions in Randolph and Studio One and Club N A and Stone Pony. I mean, there was a billion clubs.
City Gardens.
Oh my God, City Gardens!
Calhoun Street, baby.
I went to twice. I saw the Ramones there, and I saw Agnostic Front, and it was nearly a riot on that one. And that was those are some great shows.
Well, I was at the show with the Agnostic Show in '89 at Airport Music Hall in Allentown. That was a riot. The real deal.
Airport Music! I forgot about. I saw Biohazard with Mucky Pup at the.
Damn, we might have been at the same show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We probably were, because I went to a ton of shows back then.
Yeah, I was the much shorter, long-haired dude at that time. So.
I was much skinnier with a mullet, unfortunately.
You could still grow out the mullet, but it's just a skullet. You just pull it.
No. At the point where I look like Gallagher, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not acceptable.
Wow, I can't get that image out of my head. God.
Photoshop exists for a reason.
If somebody in the chat wants to Photoshop that, you are welcome to.
So
I'm sure Lauren accepts fan art, right?
Oh, whatever. Sure, buy a book first, but yeah. So where do you see this all going, the whole horror genre going? Where do you see it, like, moving? I know the easy answer is everywhere, right? But you've been in the business long enough. You've seen enough of the earthquake and changing continents. Where's it going?
The short answer is I friggin' wish I knew, because I would try to ride that wave. But a lot of authors, especially a lot of authors that have been around a while, are diversifying. They're doing. I mean, there's a ton of guys getting into splatterpunk. The splatterpunk Western thing. Who knows how long that's gonna last. For me, it's like the men and women who are writing, who have been doing it a long time, are either going way extreme or they're going in the opposite direction. So most of my stuff coming up will actually be more thriller. Dirty Deeds was a huge book for me, and that series still. I mean, it was a Kindle Scout winner. I still have Amazon 4 years later. I still have Amazon behind it, pushing sales, and so that one's like really my bread and butter series. And it's a humorous crime thriller series. It has nothing to do with horror, and it's something that I've always loved. And so going forward, I'll probably do less and less horror stuff, because I feel like I've hit that ceiling for it. And I see a lot of other authors are doing the same thing. Dan Padavona is a great example of a horror guy for years and years, and he just kind of 180'd into the thriller stuff. I mean, he still does serial killers and stuff, but he's doing way more mainstream than he's ever done, and he's doing phenomenal with it. I mean, he's selling a ton of books, and he's just doing really well. And that's kind of where I'm heading towards. I think I'll always write horror. I love horror books. I just don't know long term if that's really a good model for me anymore, because it's fractured so much. Now, that being said, there's a great new site that just came out called godless.com. Do you guys hear about this?
I read about it on your blog.
So it's really good. It's horror. It's mostly splatterpunk and stuff, but they just took they started selling 2 of my books that you can't find anywhere else. So I have 2 exclusive books on there. Tool Shed, which had only come out as a from Thunderstorm as a limited 29 copy hardcover signed books. So that was the only way you could get that. And a book called Death Metal, which hasn't been in print for years. And I gave them the exclusive for both of those books, and they're on sale. They're only 89 cents each. Kind of, it's an experiment for me. It's like, let's see if this works. And so far, it's doing great. I mean, both books are doing phenomenal, and they have a lot of really good exclusive stuff. And I hope that that's the way that this goes. That we can find, as a horror lover, you can find a site like that you can buy, the books you're looking for without having to go through pages and pages on Amazon. Because, unfortunately, if you go to horror on Amazon, most of it is, Anita Blake books. It's paranormal romance books. They've kind of really figured out, what to jump in. There's a couple of subgenres that I really like for the thriller stuff, but it's all romance now because they've realized, I can hit number one in this subgenre and then call myself a number one Amazon author. And so it's kind of screwing up the algorithms and everything else to me. But a site like this is just kind of pure. If you're into horror, if you're into extreme horror books or any kind of horror books, like this is the place to go to, kind of thing. So I hope we see more of that coming up.
Yeah, I just checked out the godless.com website, and man, it's like the first thing that pops up is just your giant face, just like tipped over. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like the author of the week because I just, like I said, a couple of days ago, they just released those two books, which was awesome.
Yeah, I actually got a question for you too, because and I know we also have another question in the chat, Lauren, from Griffin.
Oh, I see.
But, yeah.
You go first, then we'll get to Griff.
Okay. Yeah, just because it's off the top of my head. But you were talking about how a lot of things are, more like paranormal romance, like horror romance stuff. Do you think that is probably due to the Twilight effect?
I think it definitely has a part to it. I think as a lot of writers are looking for something different, they're not just writing one thing. Because with horror, you could write anything. I mean, you could write horror romance, you could write horror fantasy, you could write horror sci-fi. I mean, you can really add it to anything. And I think a lot of authors are doing that. I mean, horror Western, I think, is huge right now because we really didn't have it for many, many years. We had a few out there, but it really wasn't a huge thing. And I think now a lot of authors are gravitating towards that. And I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I've written a couple of short stories. I mean, I actually have something that me and author Chuck Buda co-wrote a novella together that hasn't come out from a publisher yet. But for me, it's all like, yeah, let me try it and then move on. Let me try it and move on. Let me see how many different subgenres I can write. And sometimes it hits. Sometimes there's no way. I mean, I've written I guess what you would call horror erotica. I've written a couple of those that did really well, and then all of a sudden the bottom drops out on them, and then all of a sudden that's not a thing. So, as an author, if you can adapt, but also if you can get lucky, I think that's the big thing. You're definitely going to see another Twilight come around at some point, and then everybody's going to jump on that bandwagon again.
I mean, yeah, that scares me, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I like how you're trying out different things and you're not sticking to the same formula. You're kind of just dabbling and seeing, what's this like? What's that like? Yeah. And I mean, I think some writers can get stuck on just doing one thing, like sticking to one genre and not really branching out.
I never wanted to be a zombie author. Somebody had called me that years ago in an interview. And I kind of took it, I guess I took it the wrong way because I didn't want to be a zombie author. I wanted to be a horror author. I wanted to be an author. And that's when I really started looking and going, man, I'm just writing a lot of zombie stuff and I'm starting to get bored with it. There's not a lot to do. I mean, I know a couple authors who have like 20 and 30 different releases and they're stuck because that's what sells. And then anytime they try something else, it doesn't sell. And I'm very blessed because I don't need the money per se. So it allows me to go, you know what? I want to write something different. I want to write a crime thriller. I want to write a paranormal thriller. I want to write a ghost story. I want to write a time travel book, whatever else I want to do, because I know I'm still making money on my 2 or 3 main series that are coming out, and I'm making enough money that allows me to do what I love.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
I do understand the seduction of the zombie money, though. I mean, in my catalog, my single zombie work is the thing that sold the most copies, period, The Lifeless. I could have continued just to do that.
Yeah.
And in ways it would have even been the smart thing, I guess, but I can't imagine I have more to say on the subject, you know?
Well, that's what it starts to come off as if you're just kind of chasing the money on it. You know, when you really don't have, and you're just regurgitating the same ideas over and over. And before Dirty Deeds came out, I mean, the Dying Day series was my top seller. I mean, easily. And I was doing other books, but you couldn't even get close to it. Now Dirty Deeds has passed that, but it's still, I mean, 4 years later, I'm still selling a ton of Dying Days books. You know, and that's on a daily basis. So, you know, that it makes me go, okay, you know what? I'm glad I put those out, and I've made a lot more money on this series than I ever thought I would, and I'll continue to make money on this series. But that freedom allows me to do other books as well, which I love.
Griffin wants to know, was Jack Ketchum an influence?
You know, I wasn't really a huge fan of some of the extreme stuff. I was a big fan of Jack himself, just the way he carried himself at a convention, scotch in his hand, standing at the bar, kind of winking at all the girls. I mean,
smoking
some
outside
of
a lot.
Yeah, some of the stories he could tell were amazing, and I wasn't close to Jack, but I'd been to enough World Horror conventions and different conventions with him that you know, I could always talk to him, and I always say hi to him and stuff. And I think that was huge for me. When I read The Girl Next Door, I mean, that I was gutted reading that. I mean, that was brutal. But the writing, I mean, his writing was so great. I mean, you know, I like Layman, but Layman's kind of goofy, and it was like, okay, crazy monsters are going to try to have sex with all the women. Okay, let's get into this kind of thing. And it was fun for what it was, but Ketchum took it to that extra level. I mean, you know, anything he wrote, I think Dallas could kind of, you know, twist you a little bit and make you really kind of have to put the book down for a little bit and go, okay, let me go hug my kids, or let me go do something else for a little while, you know?
Because he made you complicit.
Yeah.
Which is what, like...
You know what? Exactly right.
Right, because to a degree, just buying the book made that story happen. There was a certain level of resonant guilt in his work. And Dallas was always very nice to me. I wasn't close to him either, but we definitely knew each other. I can remember being outside of the very first Scares That Cares convention, and he was smoking. I was just standing there, I think, to be around him, to be honest.
Yeah.
And he was funny. He was upbeat. He was just a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big loss.
It really was. Dan Shine of Flesh Wound Radio has a question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, The Beast? Also, what is your favorite Sasquatch film?
Nice.
So The Beast is based on an actual. I grew up in Middletown, New Jersey, and it's based on a story of there's a real place called Porcy Park in New Jersey, and of course the urban legend was that there was a Bigfoot that lived in the woods of Porcy Park. And so I kind of used that as my basis for, it was one of my Severed Press novellas. And that was kind of thing. So the story set in New Jersey, in Middletown, 1986. And a lot of the people in it are, I went to Middletown North, and then there's also a Middletown South. So I kind of used all the real places and different things. And actually, in the book, those are actual streets and everything. And it kind of plays off the urban legend of this Bigfoot does exist, and he is attacking the houses that are right near Porcy Park, and that's kind of how it started. So it was one of those cool things where if you're from Jersey and you read it, and you'll see like pork roll, egg, and cheese sandwiches in it, and you'll see a lot of Jersey-esque things to it. And it was really a lot of fun to write that one.
And favorite Bigfoot movie?
I don't know. They're all no. They're. I mean, so what's funny is I'm not really a huge horror movie fan for probably like the last 15 or 20 years, which is kind of funny. So like friends will push me, like an author who does cosmic horror, J.C. Walsh, huge horror fan. Like he can tell you everything about every movie. And so as a joke, one night I was watching one of the Lighthouse movies, and he was like, "Oh, you got to watch this one, and this one." So I watched all of them, and I was like, "Oh, those are pretty good." So for me, it's more like I'll watch them occasionally, but I'm really big on the what was the one that they did everywhere? Hellier, was that the series where they're like searching in like Tennessee or Kentucky or something for goblins in the mines or something. It's like a reality TV thing that came out a couple years ago, and I love those. I love watching the reality TV shows. I love watching those more than just a Bigfoot movie.
So let me ask, did you grow up on In Search of?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. I was a huge fan. I mean, we still watch, what's the Josh Gage shows. We still watch those. Unexplained with William Shatner. I love Ancient Aliens. I mean, all of those I'll still watch. My wife's always like, "Why are we watching this?" But like there's some really like I love the conspiracy theory ones. I don't believe any of it, but I love watching them. I love, like, we were watching some the other day, and they're like, "Oh, the moon landing was faked," and I'm like, "Oh, you're killing me here." But I love watching those. I love watching that kind of reality TV, I guess, which isn't really reality. In one of my books, Frozen in Ice, I have a guy called Hunter Shea, who is based loosely on Hunter Shea, obviously.
Maybe a little bit.
Drinks a lot. Unlike Hunter, of course, and he is like a cable access reality, cryptid guy who loves all this stuff. So it's a lot of fun writing that character with all of the Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all these conspiracy theories. And of course, we have down here in Florida, we have the skunk ape. I wrote a novella for a publisher, a skunk ape book. So I mean, I'm a big fan of all that. But my co-host for the Mondo Method, Chuck Buda, is a huge Bigfoot fan. In fact, he believes like all of it, which I love. I love busting his balls because he comes down to Florida and he's like, "Let's go look for a skunk ape," and I'm like, "Yeah, you can go. I'm gonna stay in the air conditioning. No thanks."
What the fuck is a skunk ape? I need to know this.
It's just
I'm in Texas.
It's a white furred Bigfoot that doesn't exist but smells bad, right?
Yeah. It's right. It's basically the Florida swamp version of a Bigfoot, but it stinks. It's called a skunk ape.
It also belongs in Louisiana.
So you gave up. You left the Jersey Devil behind, which obviously is not real too, but at least it's a cooler story.
Yeah. I mean, you really can't beat the Jersey Devil story.
You really can't. Although it's preposterous now. Like people are like, "Oh, well, let's go hunt for the Jersey Devil." I'm like, not sure you get what that really means now. You go down to that part of the state, you're probably not coming back.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of but you know what though? You hang out in the Pine Barrens for a couple days and you meet some of the locals and you can write about 10 horror books out of it.
Yeah, and at least 3 Wrong Turn sequels. I have another Bigfoot question because I'm very interested in this. Like, what's it? Were there more? Did you have like more Bigfoot stories up in Jersey versus Florida? I imagine like every state has their sightings, but is it more prevalent up north or more or down south for you right now?
I think there's more. There's more down here, but Jersey's a little bit of everything. I mean, Jersey's not. Everybody goes, "Oh, the Jersey Devil," but I mean, every town. I mean, that's why Weird New Jersey magazine has been around forever because it's never going to stop with all of the sightings and everything. I went up there a few years ago. We did a book signing in a Barnes and Noble, and I think I ended up buying like 40 or 50 copies of Weird New Jersey because you can't get it down here. And it's too expensive to mail. So me and my wife were like, all right, issue 16, 17. We were like putting in, the lady was laughing. But I mean, I have a huge stack of them. And that's actually where the Beast came from, because going through, I always look at the places where I grew up or I hung out, and that reminded me of, and I think the article was actually called The Beast, and I just named I named the novella that.
Your Beast versus Peter Benchley's Beast?
Yeah,
I'd watch that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but I'd watch it.
Listen. I love some Prime Benchley, but we got to face facts on the later stuff. If you don't know what Weird New Jersey is, because I realize that culturally that's probably pretty much a short throw. It's a magazine devoted to just urban legends, weird things, sightings, and just weird Jersey culture. So you'll find UFO sightings and all kinds of ghost stories and mythological creatures. And it's a very regularly produced magazine, so that tells you how weird Jersey really is.
Yeah,
But
they're never going to run out of stuff.
No, I mean, we don't have the exotic drugs that are down in Florida. We just have the, regular ones. But we have the monsters, or at least the legends of them.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Well, guys, we started late, but we got the full hour with Armand in, and that's a really amazing thing.
Appreciate it.
Armand, where can people keep up with everything in your world? And is there anything in particular that they should be buying when they get done with watching this show?
You can find me at ArmandRosamilia.com. Obviously, I have an Amazon page. I am my favorite is Twitter, Armand Author on there. Come hang out. I post constantly on there, maybe too much. The latest is Room 138. I co-wrote with Jay Wilburn. It's a time travel book. And I'll have Keyport Cthulhu 3, set in New Jersey, which will be coming out May 4th. And then May 25th, I will have United States of Apocalypse 2 that I co-wrote with Mark Tufo. That will be out May 25th. And then June 15th, I'll have Dirty Deeds 10 coming out. And I think I have like 3 or 4 anthologies I'm in as well that should be out between now and the summer as well.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
Dan is just letting you know that he's intending to pick up some of your books. So
I appreciate that.
It wasn't a completely fruitless evening.
I'm just glad the power stayed on this whole hour. This is nice.
Do you have a
And
fish
now the
tank?
power's going to go off for the rest of the night now.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll go to bed. I'm old. I'll go to bed.
And the tropical fish don't need air that much anyway. So, Sam, what do we have coming up on Sheebie Jeebies?
Well, I mean, I uploaded a video yesterday about Nightmare on Film Street and all that drama because I'm a bad gossip and I just get involved in things I shouldn't get involved in. I don't know what we've got going on Sheebie Jeebies. I'm probably going to try and actually fish out my webcam so I can work on some better videos for you guys because that one I made yesterday fucking sucked. But, yeah, no, just more uploads as time allows because busy people. I mean, I'm not Armand level busy over here, but like, dude, there's only so much multitasking we can all do. I think he's got us beat.
Clearly.
But I am looking forward to. I probably am gonna pick up room 138 because I do enjoy time travel, and I'm already doing Dying Days, so just go back and forth between those.
Might as well, yeah.
Yeah,
that's how he writes them anyway. So you might as well read them that way.
Yeah, there's no real order, so.
that's your version of time travel right there. Is just popping between projects, man.
Pretty much, yeah.
On this channel, we'll be back on Monday where we'll be speaking to Kristen Cleveland. And then on Friday, Riley Mitchell of the Paranormal Bucket will join us. So we'll be talking cryptids again in big detail with someone who I think does believe. And then on Cinco de Mayo, Wednesday, the 5th of May, we have Greg Lambertson coming in to talk about all things Slime City and beyond, including his new project. So everyone, please stay safe out there. Hope you had a good evening thus far. Get some sleep.